Your eyes on the times, you walk ready to speak up. But with so many problems, you're exhausted trying to keep up.
This is the Church Politics Podcast, where you can get political commentary from a biblical worldview. We're not trying to be conservative or progressive. We're trying to be Christian in the public square.
And I'm black as heaven. I'm made in God's image. Nobody can change my settings. Hey man, cut off my knees and put an end to my search. It's easy to sell your soul when you don't know what it's worth.
What you know, good AND Camp? You're listening to the AND Campaign's Church Politics Podcast with Justin Giboney, a.k.a. Bishop Cooper's grandson. But again, I'm not alone. I have a friend that has come along with me. He's one of Mays High School in Atlanta's finest, Howard University's finest. He still got the waves rocking them, you know what I'm saying? He keeping the waves alive. I ain't mad at that. But always happy to have my dear friend, Dr. Jaha Howard. What's going on, brother?
Hey, I appreciate that. My Kappa play brother, you know, recognize the waves spinning when they spinning. So
the waves spinning. It's funny because my middle son, he was like, man, I want waves. I was like, okay. So he's been getting his waves tightened up. And I should have just showed him a picture of you, man. This is how you waves.
That's hilarious.
But anyway, man, wanted to start off by saying, well, obviously I always welcome. You're always welcome here. But I was excited to see Shedeur Sanders this weekend. I don't know if you checked him out, but he had a really, really good game. His first preseason game with the Browns, the Cleveland Browns, and he showed out. And it's interesting because we know it's just preseason, but he went through a lot. You know, for him to go not go in the first round, not go in the second round, not go in the third round, and so on. That was an embarrassment to some extent for him, I'm sure.
No,
right? Like that's not easy for a kid to go through, but he sucked it up. He got better. You could tell he's been in the books, learning the plays. Again, it's just preseason, but I can name a lot of guys who did not play even close to that. Well, he might have had one of the best, quarterback performances that we saw in this first week of preseason. And I just want to say this. I think what he went through in that draft may be the best thing that could happen to him. Yeah, his pockets ain't as big as they could have been if he would have went earlier. Cool, but there's plenty of time to get to that money, right? If that's the thing.
I think his story arc is one to pay a lot of attention to. Just kind of what he was born into, the expectations that come on superstars' kids, and then to manage people and to push through different schools, different programs, different platforms, and to see him perform at the highest level, almost at the highest level preseason, but like. We're in the league. I mean, this is a big deal.
And his dad couldn't do that for him, right? So there's a lot of people saying, oh, you just with your dad. He gives you this. He retired your jersey, all this other stuff. His dad couldn't go in there and play for him. His dad obviously couldn't get him drafted higher. He had to go into his own situation. He had to man up. And it's looking like he's doing that. So I'm wishing the best for him. I love that he had a great performance and hoping that he does well. And then I saw, today that he was in Sunday service, getting the word. So
he's been giving God the glory, and that's one good thing he's getting from his dad is to make sure that Jesus gets some glory since he's going to be on the platform like this.
That's right. So kudos to that man. Hopefully he continues not only in the preseason, but to get some play during the season and do a really good job. One thing that I saw that there's a lot of conversation about, Jaha, is a recent poll from Emerson College polling. And according to this poll, we know brother Buttigieg, Pete Buttigieg, is running for president. I think that's pretty clear to everybody. But according to this Emerson College poll, he has 0% support from Black voters right now if he were to run in 2028 for the Democratic National Convention nomination, right? And I've heard, on social media, I've seen a lot of progressives basically say, well, the Black community is homophobic and all this stuff. And I take offense to that. I disagree. I disagree that that's the case. I think there's some other very clear reasons why people might not think he's in the best position to be president.
That's right.
One of those, in my opinion, is, well, I do think he's a solid communicator, right? He gets his talking points. He communicates well. You can tell he's put a lot of time into that.
He's an excellent communicator. I got to give him that.
I think he's pretty. I know better. I mean, he's not Obama, right? Like I've never heard him give a speech that was just like rousing. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think my standard for that's a little higher based on some of the guys that we've seen.
Understood. Right? Maybe I just got Biden in my head, but no, he's definitely.
Yeah,
I don't give him above solid. But now, go ahead.
I would say his interview style is pretty good. Yeah, right. Like he does pretty good interviews. He's thoughtful in how he responds and all that stuff. I don't see him as like giving his speeches where he's just like the crowd's just melting and anything like that. I would say that's excellence in that space.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think we're both on the same page on that. So I'll give him that. I'm not going to take anything from him on that. But I do think he's always seemed like what we call in rap, like an industry plant, right? Like it's always seemed like this is somebody who appears out of nowhere after being the mayor of a small town and somehow is qualified to be the president
on the world stage.
And if you look at his record while he was mayor, it's really not that great. And especially with African Americans, there wasn't a whole lot of love there. So one of the big reasons for me too is he's always seemed like an underqualified person who's being propped up, right? That's being propped up by progressive elites because he is kind of he's kind of part of what they're trying to promote in how he goes about what he does. So I'm not mad at people that say, this seems like a plant. Kind of the progressive oligarchs clearly want Buttigieg to be something, and they're going to force it on us, whether we like it or not. So that's my first thing. I think a lot of people are like, I don't know about this guy. It kind of came out of nowhere. It's kind of being forced on us. Not a great record, not a whole lot of experience, even though the communication skills in interviews and probably in a debate would be solid. All right. The next thing is super, super progressive, super, super far left when it comes to social issues.
Yeah.
Now, he's tried in recent interviews to move to the center on that. He's even grown a beard. I guess that's supposed to help move to the center. I don't think people are going to buy that, right? Like, and most of the country, even a lot of African Americans, are just not that far left on a lot of social issues. I think he's going to have a hard time convincing people that he's somehow moderating on those issues. And so even with that being far left on the social issues, when it comes to economic issues, very much the neoliberal corporatist, if you look at some of the statements he's made, that's where he's at. Again, a lot of Black people were really never there as far as the corporatist part, but especially when it comes to a lot of these economic issues with the establishment, they're just out of touch. It's not there. So those are legitimate reasons why people would say, no, I just don't think he's the one. I don't think he's been tested. Substance, there's a lot of people who can give good interviews. Does that mean you're substantive? Does that mean you have character? And it certainly doesn't mean that you are qualified as far as your experience. I think those are the biggest questions to him. And those are the biggest questions for him. The other thing I would say is the president isn't just a policy robot. So even if he did get all the policy right with this community, I still think there would be some questions about what they think that representation should look like. Is there an LGBTQ person that could break through that? Possibly, right? But I think generally when you look at like the Obama model and what he and his family meant to a lot of African Americans, they just don't get that feel from that situation. Yeah. And that means something to a lot of people. And that's one of the criticisms that a lot of people have of Trump. That's not somebody who should be a model for what I want to show younger people they should strive for and stuff like that. I think there are people who represent that better that'll be running for president. And that matters to a lot of African Americans. Y'all can decide whether you think is right or wrong, but that matters to a lot of African Americans. I want to ask you this question, though. Do you think that number can change? And my opinion on that number is this. I don't think it's 0%, right? I think that some of our peers, progressive, professional class, Black folks would probably vote for him because they're very, very progressive, far more progressive than we are, right? Far more progressive than the mean of the African-American community. So I think you'll get some of those folks. I also think we know there's some leaders that, hey, man, for the right price, they're gonna get behind. They're gonna get behind it and push it, whether they believe in it or not. That's my opinion. That number could change. Does that number ever go way up? It's doubtful, but it depends who else is running.
I agree with a lot of what you said. I think at the end of the day, the Black community is very diverse, and we have some very far left-leaning folks in the Black community, and they will be happy to go along with who the far left says is their person when it comes down to it.
Especially if it makes you look more progressive. Like, you got to get your progressive bona
fides.
You
got a virtue signal to say, look how progressive I am. Who are we getting behind now? We've always had, I guess, I say we very loosely, have somebody kind of get behind. So we tend to fall for those traps of this is the next shiny new thing. But there's a substance issue here. When it comes to political track record, you mentioned it about a small town mayor, don't have a lot to hold on to. And then here you are as a presidential candidate, and then you're the transportation secretary, I think, and then like having probably one of the worst records of a transportation secretary during the Biden administration. Those are for the people who are paying attention. And then when it comes to that identity politics that we love to, like, does anyone in the Black community look at Pete Buttigieg and say, oh man, I really see myself in him, because some of us vote for that connection, that identity connection. I think he falls short there. But yeah, you make some really good points. But to your point, when the far left money says this is our guy, you best believe there will be folks who want to just fall in line. But I think he'll have a very hard time winning the nomination. It would have to be some
a mistake for the Democrats.
But I just don't put it past the Democratic Party to bring out all of the so-called top guns in the Black community, and all of a sudden Pete Buttigieg is the next Obama,
Right,
So
and then you realize, maybe these people don't have as much influence as I thought.
Yeah, you got
you don't realize it until it's
and I'm not speaking for these people. I don't know who they support, but I can just see this press conference and all of them standing behind him, and he is our guy. And best believe a big chunk of the Black community will be happy to get behind it.
Yeah. I mean, I think of the leadership class in that community, you'll see that, and then you'll realize, the leadership class has kind of lost some credibility, and they actually don't have that much influence. And then you'll end up figuring that out during the general, and you'll be right back where you started. So that could happen. We'll have to keep an eye on it, but that legitimately could happen.
This episode, so we come back in a few years.
Oh yeah, we always gonna keep it in the archives, bro. We always gonna keep it in the archives and come back to it. As always, guys, I got to give a shout out to all our patrons and supporters for supporting us in what we do and how we do it. Listen, you guys see the polarization. You see the Christians who are walking away from the faith because they don't know how to combine justice and orthodoxy. They don't know how to maintain the authority of Scripture and love others. They don't have a framework for it. You guys see that, and you guys want to change it. You guys want to change how Christians engage politics. And by supporting the AND campaign, you have a chance to do that. When you go to andcampaign.org and you donate to us on a monthly basis, you're not just sitting there and complaining about what's happening. Yeah. You're saying, you know what? I want to be part of a movement that's going to engage this polarization and make it better. That's going to give Christians a framework for how to engage with moral order and social justice without giving in to the left or the right. And so for those of you who have said, I want to be a part of changing how Christians engage and also changing how the public square is working for people who are hurting, you can do that through supporting the AND campaign. So for those of you who give to us monthly for the AND campaign, for those of you who are patrons and you go to patreon.com/churchpoliticspodcast and you give, monthly to that, thank you. Because you've become part of something that's greater than me, that's greater than you. It's part of something that's really trying to carry the word in the public square, in politics, and it's a big deal. And you know that if you become a patron, then you get a extra segment. So after this, we always record an extra segment, and you'll get to hear that. Today, I'll be talking about gerrymandering again when it comes to Texas and Illinois. And how partisans on both sides may have lost the credibility to criticize the other side on this. because they're not standing up to their own side, which has something to do with what we'll be talking about today. So appreciate y'all. Please consider giving to the AND campaign, because you can be a part of changing the things that you're complaining about, that I've been complaining about, that need to change. All right? Definitely appreciate y'all. So y'all know what it is. Grab your Bible, get your mind right, and prepare to think not like a Republican, not like a Democrat, but to think like a Christian. And Jaha, I want to go to Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 19. And it says, "Your wickedness will punish you. Your backsliding will rebuke you. Consider then and realize how evil and bitter it is for you when you forsake the Lord your God and have no awe of me, declares the Lord Almighty." As you know, Jaha, prophets were often sent to critique their own people. Not just to critique the Canaanites or the Philistines, but to critique Israel, to critique Judah. And I think in the same way, American Christians need to be willing, need to be ready when necessary to critique America. But it's not just that. I think that Christians who are on one side of the political spectrum or the other not only need to be willing to critique America in regard to the other side, but need to be ready to critique their side of the conversation. I think, and I've said this before, that it is clearly, obviously unfaithful if something is going wrong on my side and I never say anything. If I'm quick to say, man, you see what Trump is doing over there? It's terrible. Yeah, I see all that. But when I see something on my side going on, I don't want to say anything because it might help the other side. That is not a consideration for Christians. And I'm sure there was somebody when Jeremiah says this that's like, yeah, you criticizing us, but what about them people over there? We just got through fighting them. What about them? Why are you talking about us? Right? There was some whataboutism. I'm almost certain when these prophets came to say what they had to say, because we always come up with reasons why we shouldn't have to listen or why somebody else shouldn't be critiquing us. All right. I think it's really problematic. And one thing I want to point out, though, is a couple people I have seen that are willing to critique the other side. One of those people is Congressman, I think he's from Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie, who's a Republican. He has been going at it with President Trump over this Epstein files. He's really been calling them out in the realest way to say, hey, y'all left town, y'all trying to cover up for something that y'all said was terrible and had to be fixed. And now that the president is implemented, now we're running away from it. Now we're going on break and doing all this other stuff instead of dealing with the issue. So I want to give a shout out to Thomas Massie, who is somebody who's been willing to call this stuff out on his side. We need to recognize people for this because maybe we'll create an incentive for them to do it more often. Somebody else who did this in a real way is Crystal Ball, who is on Breaking Points. Crystal Ball is a commentator. She's run for office, very progressive. But she had some things to say about another progressive politician that weren't so pleasant. All right. And so I want y'all to listen to some of this right now.
In a Senate that is full of amoral, psychopathic monsters, it can be difficult to choose among the various odious figures who should truly reach the S tier of villainy. You've got your proudly genocidal types like John Fetterman. You've got your Islamophobic pro-crypto sellouts like Kirsten Gillibrand. But in terms of the Democratic caucus, at least, in my humble opinion, Cory Booker is the worst. He is just the worst. Booker combines theatrical vacuous preening with corporate slavishness with moral horrors for a total package that is thoroughly and completely repugnant. Please, for the love of God, someone decent primary this man. So the problems with Cory Booker, of course, they're nothing new. I actually attended a wedding that he officiated once, and I swear to God, the first maybe 20 minutes of the ceremony he spent describing his own personal faith journey. Leave it to Cory Booker to make a wedding about himself instead of, I don't know, maybe the bride and groom. I'm also old enough to remember when Booker went on Meet the Press as a top Obama surrogate to decry that campaign's attacks on Mitt Romney's Bain Capital private equity record. This was really something.
That stuff, I have to just say from a very personal level, I'm not about to sit here and indict private equity. To me, it's just this, we're getting to a ridiculous point in America, especially that I know I live in a state where pension funds, unions, and other people are investing in companies like Bain Capital. If you look at the totality of Bain Capital's record, they've done a lot to support businesses, to grow businesses, and this, to me, I'm very uncomfortable. This kind of stuff is nauseating to me on both sides. It's nauseating to the American public. Enough is enough. Stop attacking private equity. Stop attacking Jeremiah Wright. This stuff has got to stop, because what it does is it undermines, to me, what this country should be focused on. It's a distraction from the real issues. It's either going to be a small campaign about this crap, or it's going to be a big campaign, in my opinion, about the issues that American public cares about.
Nauseating. Okay. The Obama campaign and Democratic-based backlash against Cory Booker was swift after those comments. I remember a sweaty, nervous Rachel Maddow interview he did in the aftermath of those comments to try to clean it up, but he never really fully recanted. It was a very revealing episode because it broadcast that he was willing to take the heat, even against Obama, the most beloved figure in the Democratic Party, in order to defend the honor of Capitol.
Wow. Crystal Ball did not hold back on Senator Cory Booker. Now, I do want to say this. At some point, she talks about, I think she was upset about him not supporting the guy who looks like he's going to be mayor of New York, because he's a Democratic socialist. She's a Democratic socialist. So that did have something to do with her motivation for this particular conversation. And I don't think that Cory Booker necessarily has to get into the New York mayoral race. I don't see why that's like a imperative for him. But whether you agree with her critique or not, I think calling out some of this stuff is important and gives you a certain bit of credibility when you want to call out other people. And that's one of my biggest things. Like, I'll be honest with you, Jaha, I lost friends because, especially during an election, for you to have any critique of your side, like, people cannot stand that. I lost friends because I didn't just agree with everything the Democratic Party had to do and had to say during this last election. It wasn't because I was supporting Trump, but you can't say nothing. You can't be honest. You can't have no real conversation. All you'll hear is whataboutism. Well, what about what they're doing? I called out what they're doing too. But guess what? I got to say something. So I think this is necessary, especially for a Christian, for an honest citizen, but especially for a Christian to be able, because it's often very self-interested to call out other people on the other side. Yeah, it takes some sacrifice to call out your side, and it doesn't necessarily seem as immediately beneficial to you when you have to do it. So I want to hear from you, Jaha, what you think about the necessity for a good citizen, but not only a good citizen, for a Christian to call out people on their side.
Yeah, I think it speaks to a couple of themes. One is allegiance. As Christians, our ultimate allegiance is to Christ. And our political party can never get in the way of that. And I think what happens way too often is, especially in the heat of an election, we get way too invested in specific people, specific parties, and it starts to become our little idol. That little idol turns into a big idol, to where now truth doesn't have any room. Now truth has to wait until later, until a more convenient time, and that convenient time never comes. We lose credibility. And when we're trying to persuade folks who may disagree with us, people remember when you don't have anything to say to speak the truth in love when you have the opportunity. So I think that as Christians, we may be some of the few people who should have that moral standing. There's a reason why we're going to speak the truth, even if it gets us in trouble with our own political tribes. But unfortunately, we have to oftentimes look toward folks who are outside the body of Christ for examples of it. I mean, which should shame us, that we have to look for examples outside the body of Christ for that. So yeah, completely important topic. I'm glad that you're bringing it up. And I know this is such a difficult standard to uphold here, but I just appreciate the work that you've been doing and the AND campaign and Church Politics Podcast, because you don't get this in most places.
Yeah, and it's easy to slip into it too. I want to say it's for practical reasons. People will look at you crazy and be upset with you that you criticize their side, because they're like, really all that matters right now is this election. And you are very silly and impractical to say something bad about the person that is clearly better than the other person in this moment. But that's a political consideration. That's political expedience. That's not, bruh, even if they win, what if they win? Do I just let them continue to do what they're doing now?
Yeah.
Right? Like, when can I call it out? Because even after they win, the next election is always very close. And you say, well, you're going to hurt them for the next election if you say something right now. Well, when do I get to say something?
Yeah.
And is it my job? I mean, they got, this last election had $1 billion or some dollars that were spent on promoting them. Is that the church's responsibility too? To add to the promotion of a candidate in that way? I don't think that it is. And so I think you're absolutely right. This is a matter of integrity. And what I would suggest, I would go so far as to say, not only is it important for Christians to be able to do that, it should be one of our disciplines to always step back, have a prophetic independence, and be able to say every election, every so often, let me step back and see, have I been honest about what my side gets wrong? Because I'll be honest with you right now, this is a perfect time, especially for Christians who are on the Democratic side, as the Democratic Party is looking for an identity.
Yeah.
This is not the time to just support whatever they might come up with. They don't know who they are. As they're trying to decide who they are, the best thing we could do right now is step in and say, well, whoever you become, you need to make sure that you correct this that you got wrong last time.
That's right.
But so many of us are so interested in just talking about Trump, just talking about what the other side are doing, that we're not saying, wait, are we weighing in to this conversation about what this party, who has a lot of Christians in it, will be?
Yeah.
And the same thing for the Republicans. If you're a Republican and you have an opportunity, whether it's on a state level or a national level, to say, I need to weigh in because I need to have some influence over what this party becomes and over what the boundaries of this party will be as we gain more power, if that's actually what's going to happen.
That's right.
But of course, we get tricked and we're not even really aware of it. Of course, partisans don't want you to be focused on that. They want you to be focused just on the other side so they can handle that. And then you'll have to take and run with whatever they give you, because once they decide what it is, you can't criticize it because you're helping the other side.
That's right. And that's a lazy way to go. And we have to be willing, as you mentioned, we got to pay the cost to be a disciple. And if we look towards scripture at folks who were telling the truth to their own folks, pick a prophet, and they were treated terribly. We can consider every prophet that we read about, they had the minority report. Okay. The king was not going to blast what the prophet was saying. They wanted to suppress that report as much as possible. But that we have to have that type of mentality to speak the truth, and especially in dark spaces, right? We got to be salt, we got to be light. And every time we allow stuff to keep going on and just we go along with the flow, we actually miss an opportunity to, show a little bit of expression of the love of Jesus in that space. But how
easy would it have been for Jeremiah to go to Israel and talk about their enemy?
Easy.
They would have loved him. He wouldn't have been the weeping prophet.
Yeah,
he would have been the triumphant prophet, right? Like, that's the easy for me to go in the black church and talk bad about Trump. And sometimes I need to say something about Trump. That's fine. But for me to only do that,
it's a quick amen, right?
Bro, that's just, that's not prophetic.
Yeah.
That's not prophetic. And so just understand, it is in this moment, it is not just the other side that you need to address. It's your side. And if we're too hyped up on all this stuff to sit back and realize it, we're going to hurt ourselves and we're going to hurt the next generation because we're not taking the opportunities that are in front of us. We'll be right back on the Church Politics Podcast.
Your eyes on the times, you walk ready to speak up, but with so many problems, you're exhausted trying to keep up.
This is the Church Politics Podcast, where you can get political commentary from a biblical worldview. We're not trying to be conservative or progressive. We're trying to be Christian in the public square.
And I'm black as heaven. I'm made in God's image. Nobody can change my settings. Amen. Got off my knees and put an end to my search. It's easy to sell your soul when you don't know what it's worth.
And we are back on the Church Politics Podcast. So we just had a conversation about me and my brother, Dr. Jaha Howard, just had a conversation about why it's important to to critique your own side, and why it's far more prophetic in doing that than just, preaching to the choir about what's going on the other side. Not that that doesn't matter, but that's easy. In June, Texas became the 7th state, Jaha, to ban lab-grown meat. They joined Indiana, Mississippi, Montana, Nebraska, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Florida. Right? Those last two, I think, did it last year, but they did it this year. This is really interesting because a company called Wild Type has just gotten FDA approval for lab-grown salmon. All right. This is salmon where they take cells from real animals, but they take those to a lab and they grow those. Now, a lot of people are already suspicious of it because Jeff Bezos from Amazon and Washington Post fame, right? He's behind this. He's funding some of this. And a lot of people are also criticizing
Whole Foods, right?
the process. What's that?
So he owns Whole Foods, right?
Right.
So
a lot of people are criticizing the process that this lab-grown meat went through when it was going through the FDA. Some people are saying there was no peer review. It was just really based on Wild Type's own findings. And you know what? This kind of stuff sort of happens when people who have a lot of money want to get something done and want to get something through, which is why a lot of people don't trust many of our institutions right now. Right now, I'm not exactly sure that's exactly what happened. So I want to be clear, but it sounds a little fishy, right? Pun intended. So we have this situation where lab-grown salmon gets approved, but you have these states who kind of saw this coming, and they're saying, no, we're not having any. There's a ban on lab-grown meat, period. All right. Now, there's a few reasons why people who are against lab-grown meat point this out. The first one is, for a state like Texas, Florida, stuff like that, this is bad for ranchers, right? If you have a bunch of lab-grown stuff, then these ranchers who've been doing this for years and all that, eventually their business is going to die. All right. The other thing is, and this is, I understand that part of it too, and I think that's an important consideration. So I don't dismiss that at all. I don't like the idea of putting all farmers out of business because you have this technology that you think can take it over. But it also sounds like a very bad idea, and I feel this health-wise. I don't know about you, Jaha, and you're more, you are, in medical fields. You understand all that science probably better than I do, but I tend to believe that technology has its place. That technology can be very good, and we're on technology right now. We've all benefited from technology in a lot of ways, but I also believe it has its limits. And one of those limits, I believe, is based on how it's used to make our food. I don't want a whole bunch of technology involved in making our food, because guess what? What happens is we do this, and then 10 years, 40 years, whatever, oh man, that was wrong. People are actually dying because we thought that we could do something with technology that we could do without it, especially when it comes to our food. I also am a little suspicious when you got Jeff Bezos and even Bill Gates and all that pushing this so hard because they don't want us to eat meat in general, right? And I don't think, and again, we talk about kind of that oligarch stuff, I don't think that's for them to decide. I think this is for the people to decide. And when we go from people, corporations and what they want to do to government, and it doesn't go through the people, that's how we fall into a bad place a lot of times. This needs to go through the people in some way, not just from corporations to a couple administrative agencies and then to our plates. But Jaha, tell me what your thoughts were when it comes to this lab grown meat.
Man, this was a rabbit hole of rabbit holes. Just trying to learn more and more about what's going on. You bring up some fantastic points, and I agree with you. There's a couple things I want to just bring out too, is that the scope of the problem. Like, we have a population in the last 50 years that went from like 4 billion people to 8 billion people in the world. So we have doubled the population on this planet to about 8 billion people. And our diet, our consumption of meat has doubled per capita. So now you have this, we have more people and we eat more meat anyway. So the demand for meat. So I did appreciate kind of digging into like why folks are even trying to find solutions to the problem. And so I think that's why you see this rise of like vegan, plant-based foods, that kind of thing. And I think that's fantastic because at least it's an option, right?
Wait, you think it's fantastic? So you're a vegan?
I think it's fantastic. Well, let me put it this way. I think it's fantastic that we're looking for options.
No, I just want to know what you meant by fantastic.
Yeah.
Like fantastic for you.
Yeah. No. Fantastic in general, generally speaking, because personally, and we both appreciate a good steak. We love our meat. We love to be able to grill. We love, like, it's a culture thing, it's a taste thing, all of that. But this goes back to what we just talked about, critiquing ourselves.
Facts.
I think that there is a part of our culture, and Christians have to be the one to speak up here. Are we gluttonous a bit, or do we overindulge in meat?
That's fair.
Like, I'm looking at my own, look for the last week or two and look at the amount of meat that I eat. I'm like, I could decrease probably in half how much I consume and still be very well fed.
But this is what I'm telling you. You can go vegan right now, but you can announce that on the show right now.
See, no. So that's not the solution. See, so our society also has an overcorrection problem, right? So we kind of go from one extreme to the other. I know we're laughing about this, but this whole idea of it's taking processed food to a whole nother galaxy. Like now we're talking about not just processed, we're talking about scientifically processed food. And now it gets into really philosophical questions like, what is the purpose of animals? What is meat? Because then you start saying, well, this chicken is not really chicken. I think I heard it called cultured meat or cultivated meat. So now you have this label of, this cultivated chicken. Right, so it's not really a chicken. So now we have these ethical questions. If it's not really,
it's going to be cheaper, right? Eventually, it's going to be so much cheaper.
After mass produced, it will be cheaper. But then it gets to other things. If you can grow a chicken muscle, and then say it's not really it's chicken meat, but it's not really a chicken, and you can grow all these other things. I mean, I'm in some sciences. I know that folks are trying to grow all kind of tissue. Period. And they have good intentions. But because trust is so low for good reason in almost all of our institutions, now we're getting into some ridiculous ethical problems. We don't even know what to do with AI, let alone like this actual growing stuff in the lab. So
that's why the process is problematic, though.
Man, it's
for them to say the process was shortcut. And I'm wondering, where's Robert Kennedy? What are you doing? This is what you're supposed to be there for. Like, I actually supported Robert Kennedy and saying, I'm going to protect you. Where are you at?
Yeah. Like, this is where the healthy foods come in. Come on, natural,
that money,
more natural.
That money change. Hey, I'm telling you.
So let me, I probably should have started with, I love a good steak. I love the pork. Like, I believe that, I believe that we have dominion over this earth, over these animals, but that doesn't mean we are careless, that we are gluttonous with it, that I think that God has provided enough, but we do have to check ourselves. And maybe the solution is moderation, which is a word that we don't like to use. But Christians, after church, the last thing we start thinking about is moderation. We're going to eat the whole buffet. And so we got to start, and but we have to see what we can do to be more influential in the public discourse and demonstrate what it's like to maybe moderate how we eat. And maybe it'll make our voice more powerful when we have to speak on these things.
No, I received that. I think, and I've talked to my wife about that before. sometimes you have a good meal and you're like, that was probably gluttonous and I need to chill on that. And so I don't think like you, I don't think that means we all need to be vegans.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
actually, I think you said you want to go
church
ahead
politic
and
vegan crowd out there. But that's unless the Lord speaks very clear to me, I don't see that happening for me. You never know.
That's false prophecy. That's not in the scripture.
But I do think I think we overdo it, right?
Yeah,
we overdo it.
We do.
So guys, watch out for that. I think that's something that it's worth writing to your congressman about. It's worth writing to, you know what I'm saying, to your state legislatures about. I'm with Florida, Alabama, and all them on this. Like that, I just don't like the process. You got to pull this. This needs to be spotlighted and it needs to be pulled through the public discourse.
Yeah.
And people need to be informed on what this really means, what it doesn't mean. Not these short, get it through the FDA, make it super cheap when we can mass produce it. And now it's on your plate for cheaper. And now we're going to kind of trick you into putting that on your plates.
Yeah, because you know they're not going to label it lab-grown meat.
It shouldn't be called salmon anyway. Right, exactly. So the FDA is going to let them call it salmon. And there'll probably be, there'll be something that they have to write down, but it's not going to be something.
It'll be a really beautifully by the time you realize labeled
you've been eating it for 3 years and you didn't even know. That's how they do us, though. That's how they do us. Again, and I joke about this to some extent, but this is the problem with our institutions. And this is why there's a lack of trust. People want to know when these things are really happening. And I almost guarantee you most people have no idea that this happened. That's not democratic. Yeah. That's not how it should work. We need to do better. We'll be right back on the Church Politics Podcast.
Your eyes on the times, you walk ready to speak up. But with so many problems, you're exhausted trying to keep up.
This is the Church Politics Podcast, where you can get political commentary from a biblical worldview. We're not trying to be conservative or progressive. We're trying to be Christian in the public square.
And I'm black as heaven. I'm made in God's image. Nobody can change my settings. Hey man, got off my knees and put an end to my search. It's easy to sell your soul when you don't know what it's worth.
And we are back on the Church Politics Podcast. So apparently on Friday, Jaha, President Trump announced that he will meet with Russian Prime Minister Putin in Alaska next week to discuss ending the over 3 years long war with Russia and Ukraine. The president has not ruled out hosting a meeting between the two Eastern European leaders. So one of the things that he's considering is he's actually considering bringing Ukraine's leader, Zelensky, to this meeting that he's going to be having with Putin. All right. So that's the consideration. You bring Ukraine's Zelensky to this Alaskan summit where Trump will be meeting with President Vladimir Putin. This has been going on for a long time. Thousands and thousands of lives have been lost. I'm not sure this is a great idea to bring them in the meeting. I mean, at some point you want to get them in the same room.
Yeah.
To do it after you already had a meeting scheduled with Putin, I don't know how he responds to this. And here's where I think we're at with this war. I actually do commend Trump to some extent for trying to end this war, right? I don't think this had to happen, right? In a way, it does seem, and a lot of critics of the war are saying that this was a proxy war, that the reason that America is so, obviously we have some issues with Russia, but one of the reasons that America is so stuck on continuing to fund all this is some people think they kind of went into this with Ukraine. Yeah. They kind of put Ukraine up to this to some extent. Now they have their own issues and we know Russia has plenty of issues. I don't think Putin agrees to this unless he gets a large part of Ukraine.
Yeah.
I think he's been posturing in that way. He's been pushing back in that way. If anything, we ain't got to like him, but he's shrewd. And I think he's going to say, well, you give me back this portion. I don't know how big the portion will be. You give me back this portion of Ukraine and we're good. Obviously, Ukraine isn't going to want to go for that. But prospects aren't looking great for Ukraine either. In your mind, Jaha, what do you think about this meeting? Should it happen? And how urgent is it for us to see this war end?
Yeah. If this meeting is going to help end this war, I am all for it.
Mm-hmm.
And even though President Trump and I may not have the same motivation on the reason behind ending the war, if we agree on ending the war, man, please, let's end this war. Just think about the tens of thousands of people who's been killed, injured, affected on both sides of this conflict. We're like bankrolling it on the Ukraine side. I mean, I think I saw something about over $200 billion just in the last few years. Can you think of what we can do here at home with the extra $200+ billion? The way we've kind of like gone into our own stockpiles to make sure that Ukraine has weapons. I mean, it puts us at risk. I think we were trying to maybe weaken Russia through another country, so we don't actually have to do the fighting, but we can weaken an enemy through another country. It seems like that, but then it seems like that whole thing backfired. They just kind of reassessed, realigned, and kind of figured it out outside of us. I don't see where we benefited. Then you see this kind of like mineral deal, land deal stuff that Trump's trying to find a way to get more money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're bankrolling really the whole Ukrainian economy when we have infrastructure falling apart and people struggling. People can't even have health insurance here at home. I struggle to find how this is even like, why are we there?
Yeah,
And
and I think the biggest criticism of this war is, why isn't this more urgent for Germany and the countries that are actually closer to this?
yeah,
Why are they not giving as much money as we give?
yeah,
I
that's
think that
so many questions.
because the argument for it is this has to happen because Russia is our biggest enemy and we have to get them stopped. If that's true, then Western Europe would feel the same way and they're closer to it. So you would think they would want to give more. But I think the neoconservative view of all this is, not, we're the man. We got to handle, like, we're the one that handles this kind of stuff. And Trump and a lot of people on the left too are saying that's not really our role. It's not that we don't care. It's not that we can't maybe even help, but to bankroll this when countries who are a lot closer, who have a lot more invested in that particular area, aren't funding it in the same way that we are. I think that's a hard question. I haven't heard a good answer for it, unless it was just kind of the neoconservatives saying, hey, we do this because this is who we are.
Yeah.
Well, okay, who we are also has something to do with what we can do at home and what our stockpiles look like at home and what our infrastructure looks like at home. Right? Like that, that has a big deal to do with it too. So I would like to see this end. Obviously, you can't just take whatever Putin puts out there. It's got to be reasonable, but I don't think this should be a unilateral U.S. thing. I mean, there are other people that do.
Yeah, where is the community of countries to all come in? It is interesting, and it might be ego, and this is where, of course, Trump's style might be so different than how I would approach it, or maybe how a Christian would want their leader to approach it. But I mean, I just really would love this war to end. And again, this is a great opportunity to talk about how we just actually don't have a anti-war, a powerful anti-war voice in our country too. I mean, it was the Democratic side pushing, perfectly fine pushing this through.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, maybe we don't have to push this through so much. We're the anti-war folks. And then the role we played with the so-called little guy with Ukraine and Russia, and then how when it came to Israel Palestine, we play the role of helping the bigger power. This whole thing has exposed so much of our incoherence of strategy, what we say we stand on, and I think all of this has killed trust in our institutions even more. So,
and the American people, from the numbers, clearly want this to end, right? The American people are not feeling this war, and we want to be considerate of all the people whose lives are in danger. And so you want to do it in a responsible way, but something's got to give. We're not in the position to do this, especially to do this unilaterally when you have less, from a geographical standpoint, invested in what's going on at this moment. Surely some of those Western European countries can step in and try to make this shape. And Germany's in a very weird position because they still have relationships with Russia going on and all that stuff. It's kind of crazy.
Depending on their oil for a time. I don't know what has changed recently, but I don't know. Do you wait around for some other so-called powerful nations to be a part of the conversation? Or do we go ahead and just... we were very active in getting this thing started, so we need to be very active.
Well, I think what you do is you have the meeting, you try to get them to come to a solution. And if they don't come to a solution, you look at those other countries and say, hey, man, it's only so long. There's only so long that we can keep doing this by ourselves. And that has kind of been, and that's one thing I'll say about Trump's posture to some extent has been, hey, man, y'all ain't just going to make us do this by ourselves as if you don't have an interest in it. So we'll see where it goes. Hopefully they can have a conversation and it works out. We want this to be done responsibly because if we have put Ukraine in positions that they shouldn't have been in, even with suggesting that they might be a part of NATO, which I think people knew Russia would never go for, then we do need to be responsible in that way. But that just may mean ending it responsibly as possible. So we'll have to see. Jaha, man, thank you as always for coming on the show.
This is
really
great.
Enjoyed the conversation, man.
And the big announcement with you being vegan now and really getting rid of all of your
Jaha, this is a Christian podcast. How dare you? How dare you do that?
Man. Tape. I need to listen to that again. I need to see if I heard you correctly.
You should listen again. Now, I always enjoy you, brother. You'll be back on soon, I'm sure.
Man, I appreciate the invitation, man. Love to the family and to your lovely wife, and we appreciate y'all.
Likewise, brother.
Right.
Likewise. And Camp, you know what it is. There's neither a cross that political conservatism. There's a cross that neither political conservatism nor progressivism is fit to bear. There's a civic hearing in need of faithful witnesses who love social justice and won't surrender the truth to be loved by the world. Politic with the boldness and compassion of Jesus Christ. Until next time, and Camp, I'll holler at you.
Your eyes on the times, you walk ready to speak up. But with so many problems, you're exhausted trying to keep up.
This is the Church Politics Podcast, where you can get political commentary from a biblical worldview. We're not trying to be conservative or progressive. We're trying to be Christian in the public square.
And I'm black as heaven. I'm made in God's image. Nobody can change my settings. Hey man, got off my knees and put an end to my search. It's easy to sell your soul when you don't know what it's worth.